Hey there, welcome to White Women Wake Up. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Karen.
Each week, one of us brings a topic to the table, something we've been wrestling with, reading about, or noticing in our own lives.
And the other reacts in real time. No scripts, no prep, just an honest conversation between a mother and a daughter spanning generations about what it means to wake up as white women in a world shaped by bias, power, and inherited patterns.
We don't always agree, and it's not always comfortable, but we show up anyways.
Let's wake up. Hi, Jonelle.
Hello, Karen.
Wow, we were in a
How was your
little
week?
good conversation last week. Oh, before we get too far, let's announce the book club.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. We just jump into it so quickly. Don't forget, June 9th at 5:15 Pacific Standard Time. You need to email us to get a link to the book club Zoom. But we are reading Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult.
It'll be this upcoming Tuesday, so you'll have the weekend to read it. It's a pretty long book, but it's a really fast read. And again, it's a shame-free space. I think several people can attest who have come to our book club that have not read the book, but have just still enjoyed the conversation, because it's also just
Good
it's just conversations like that we have in general and stuff. And so they're really good to have. They're insightful. It's great practice. And again, Becky has just been such an amazing add to our team. We're so thankful that opportunity arose. She is such an expert in, one, the literary space, and two, the banned book space. And so it's just, it's perfect. It is a perfect match. And so, please join us.
So I have to say, I was so aware after our conversation last week that I thought about it all week, how I kept centering white women.
Okay.
You know, I think I was doing it from a space of like I kept thinking, like, if I were writing an essay or something, I would want to start with the histories of things, or the sequence, kind of a customer journey. And so it made sense. But then it's so interesting in my own framework how quickly it stayed on white women in employment rather than, like you said,
Women
the
of
need
color.
for us to think about women of color, especially Black women, in this economy with employment. And so I was really humbled at the end when you gave those statistics. It was just very settling and quieting to me.
They were rough statistics.
Yeah.
I think what you did is an honest example of what we all can naturally slip into. And this is why we're here, to kind of show, like, we are not perfect. We're vulnerable. We're showing our true authentic self. Nothing is hidden.
I know. Help.
Yeah, exactly. And so I hope that also helps people slowly open up their shell and understand, like, it's okay to make mistakes, but also you self-correct it.
Yeah, and we're learning. We're really learning.
And that's kind of the point here. We're learning in a space that is not harmful to others, in a space where we can learn, grow, and not have a negative impact on others. So when we're out in the world, we can have a positive impact. We can have a helpful impact and stuff. And that's our goal with white women.
Yeah. Well, and it's important because we're, in a lot of ways, you and I are kind of practicing out. Like, I became very aware after my conversation, after I was talking, because it made sense, that wow, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm centering white women. And not that I'm trying to devalue who I am, but again, it was humbling.
And that's a really good call out, because decentering white women isn't devaluing us. I think we get in this.
It's helping us to understand the full story. We get in this
conversation a lot with a couple of our family members who really don't like especially when I speak to, like, white people, white men, white women. They feel very called out by it, and that is not the intention. Because when we use those generalities, or when I use those generalities, it's the systems and the bias that has built us, not the individuals. And so, again, when we say we're trying to decenter white women, we're not decentering your individual strength. We're decentering white women as a whole.
Yeah.
And
or decentering so that white women aren't the only conversation.
Yes.
Because really, when you were talking about the statistic with Black women in employment, that's an important conversation.
It's a really
and I was going on and on and on about embodiment. Not that embodiment's really important.
No, but I know. I was trying to move the conversation, steer it.
Yeah.
But your point was good too. And this podcast is really tricky on how do we have a podcast for white women that doesn't center white women.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a hard...
That's going to lead into my topic in a perfect way.
Oh, it is?
Way.
Okay, because it's a hard line to kind of take. Good reflection.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have reflection, but I have what I have promised, which is updated ICE and immigration statistics every once in a while, because I want to keep this front of mind.
Yeah.
So first note is, I don't know if anyone has heard recently, but there was an update there to the green card policy on Friday, May 22nd.
No, I didn't hear.
Yes. And then it was reiterated on Tuesday, May 26th. So you haven't heard about this?
No.
So anyone now who wants to get a green card has to return to their home country first and apply for it.
Oh, my God.
Now.
So basically, this is our way of making everyone illegal.
I mean, I don't want to go that far. I don't know. But yes. And this includes, I want to be very clear, this includes married individuals.
So what happens if someone already has a green card? They can renew it?
I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know. It says when you're applying for a green card.
Okay, applying.
So I'm not sure about that. But
But it's really sad, because what you're talking about is someone who's an asylum seeker, someone who's in a desperate situation, leaving their home country.
Coming here in a visa.
Coming here. Well, even though an asylum seeker doesn't always come with a visa, they declare asylum when they get here. And so
when you
then
clear
you're
asylum,
saying,
I believe then you're given a visa. Like you can get a visa.
Yeah.
So it's moving from a visa to a green card.
But sometimes, you're already here, in other words.
And so then you have to go back.
So think about this. Can I give you an analogy?
Can I finish?
Sorry.
No. So to be clear, this affects just under 1 million people who got green cards from the U.S. since 2023. So 53% of green card applications come from spouses, children, or parents of U.S. citizens.
Oh, my God.
53%.
I'm getting
And so they would be asked to go back
to whatever
before
country
they could get their green card. Now, lawyers are saying you could still apply for an exemption. And in the past, that is what spouses were often given, is this exemption to stay in the country. But now they're saying it's no longer just a guarantee. Typically, that was just an automatic. When you applied, you would be able to stay if you were a spouse, a child, or a parent. They're saying now that actually the applications may not automatically go through.
Okay, here's my ignorance.
So this is a pretty big one.
Here's my ignorance. I always thought a green card allowed you employment. What does a green card do for a child?
So that's a great question. So let me really double check. My friend Lena, who is an active listener, actually was a green card holder for years. And so she she is now a U.S. citizen.
Because I was going to say, this is what I know it relates to employment. You need a green card in order to work.
No, that's not true. You can work on a visa.
You can work on a visa?
Yeah.
Because, So
here's the difference. Okay, you're right. This is where you come with work. You have work freedom. So visas, you need sponsorship from that company.
Okay.
And specifically, and if you move companies, you need to get sponsorship from the new company. A green card gives you work freedom.
It's like me. I can go to this job or that job.
You also get travel freedom. So typically in the past, if you had a green card, you can leave and enter the U.S. without needing separate visas.
Yeah.
So this is why they're making this.
So that's where a child would need a green card.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting. The first
You
thing.
also, this is interesting. Okay. You also can benefit from federal assistance. So, like Medicare, Social Security, your education, you can apply for federal student loans.
So it's a really important document.
Yeah. Yes. So you can't vote. You don't have a U.S. passport. You can't hold public office. And you don't necessarily get deportation immunity.
Okay.
From it. So you could still be deported on a card.
So it's so fascinating.
But it is very close to I want to be clear, it's still not an easy process even before this to get a green card. It's not like it's an automatic. There's a lot that goes into getting and maintaining a green card. So I don't want people to be out there thinking, "Oh, well, yeah, we're just handing them out." We're not handing them out. To people. But yeah, the green card is you have a legal right to permanently live in the U.S.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting when one of the things that in doing research in history on the Warsaw ghettos and the Jewish ghettos across Europe, what was interesting, and I don't know why I hadn't thought about it, but when a Jewish person or a degenerate was put in one of the ghettos, they had no opportunity to work.
Yeah.
And the idea of no opportunity to make income is, I think, one of the most horrible things, because people want to provide for their families. They want to eat. And so it's interesting that we're stripping people of this identity and this ability to freely make income for their families and provide for their families.
Yeah.
Very close parallels. Well, thank you.
Well, no, I have more statistics because I don't want us to be complacent.
Okay, one more. So keep them up. Well, I have my topic today.
But you also don't need to then go deep. You could let me just share my stats for the people. Not everything is a topic. It can just be a stat. That was my intent. Anyways, and I don't want people to become complacent. Again, this is really, really important in affecting our country, and we need to stay up to date on these things. So the 2026 ICE death toll is drastically rising from 2025. We're averaging more than a couple deaths a week in ICE detention centers.
Oh, and in the detention center.
Yes.
Yeah, they're horrific.
Yeah.
People really need to do the research, and they are profit-making detention centers. They're not even government-sponsored detention centers. We pay so much to have people in an ICE facility every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So expensive.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It is a horrific thing that's happening in our country. So
really scary
keep waking up, women.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I would love
Now
to hear.
I feel a little trite. My topic is okay. So let me talk to you
There's nothing
about
trite about any of this.
Let me talk to you about my topic.
Okay.
One of the things that I feel empowered to do is, I've said this over and over again, but I have felt that I heard the cry loud that white people have to educate themselves. White women have to educate themselves. Black women, Latino women, trans, gay, they don't want to educate us anymore. It's our job. And so I'll look at things out on social media of what's kind of being asked for us to learn. And one of the things right now that I've seen several times in different clips was this idea of get your own culture. Don't appropriate ours.
Yeah.
Get your own culture. And so, and in appropriating Black culture, Latino culture, other cultures, we're not giving credit to, I loved your Memorial Day story.
Yeah.
Perfect example
whitewash things.
We appropriated that holiday and we call it our own. So anyways, I started thinking a lot about, okay, what does it mean to educate ourselves about our culture?
Love it.
So let me give you a couple examples. One of the homework assignments I give my students is to do a design that is centered around their culture.
Yeah.
most of my white students can't figure this out.
Yeah.
In fact, I've even heard out loud, "Excuse me, I don't have a culture. What do you mean by a culture?" This is abstract to me, and I think it's abstract to me because Grandma, my mom, loved to talk about cultures and talk about, in specific, the cultures in which my family was made up of.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think we've actually had this. You brought this topic up before.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
you remember that. You brought it up.
but not specifically
not
about
specific.
how to
Totally.
learn about your culture.
No, but I want to go back on that statement is I think so often why, as one, like you said, we appropriate things, like we don't sit within our space. I think the other thing is because we are the dominant because there's dominant norms around us, we don't realize that our dominance is actually the culture, which is why so many other races, so many other ethnicities hold on to their culture dominance, and it looks like we actually don't have a culture.
Yeah.
Does that mean because we're seeing other people trying to differentiate themselves from us, not recognizing it's because we have dominated and put our culture on them. And I think it's interesting because going back to Grandma, sorry, really quickly, is around how she would talk about her cultures is because her German heritage, things like in her English heritage, those kind of cultures were really distinguished when she was growing up. Like people definitely distinguish if you were Italian versus German versus Polish versus Irish, and they were not all viewed as white. And so I think they did hold on to some more of these like values or, traditions of their past. Is that what you're going to say?
No. Actually, it's a little bit the opposite. So one of the things that they were saying, so I definitely want to get us into this journey about how do we find our culture?
Yeah.
What do we find our identity? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about one thing that, as I've had to describe to my students, and this is a little abstract, but this is one way they can understand what a culture is. A culture is shared values, shared languages, shared experiences, that don't necessarily need to be explained when you're outside of the culture. So I explain to my students, let's say you're a soccer player. You know the rules of the game. You know the vocabulary of the game. You know the type of ball that needs to be played in soccer.
Yeah.
You know the equipment. You don't need to say any of that stuff out loud to all the people that share in that soccer culture because they just get it. Got it? And so I think that that's an important thing to think about, that when we're in these spaces, we know, for example, when you and I, when we went to Spain, I didn't realize the siesta culture, right? And that seems so different from my culture. Okay, so I think that that's something that's important to say, like, what is normative to your family systems in place? They say one of the reasons we white people don't feel they have a culture is they talk about this Americanization movement. And that movement, there's two really distinct times that movement came about. One of which was the early Ellis Island, the early 1900 periods, where there were a lot of different ethnicities, European ethnicities in particular, and religions, in particular, Jewish and Catholic and Protestant. And when these movements of people came in at such large proportions, there was a desire to normalize and to standardize what would be considered appropriate. So this is simulation. Do you have a clean yard? Do you have a clean house? Are you on time? Are you neat? Do you not smell? Is your food not, how do we live in a community?
Well, and even
that's so much.
And even those are still so subjective, like smell, what smell versus like.
Well, we know it's usually food, right? Related to your food smells one way, whatever. So one of the things that happened, and is everyone was required to speak English. All of these, one of the things. So what became so important, assimilation became really important, and at the cost of quietly doing your culture. And I know it still exists for people that are, coming to the United States. Many people still hold on to their culture, but they hang on to it within their household structures. They don't now your generation is different, but a lot of people still, if you're going to be an American, you are from the US, you hold on to these values that are arbitrary, that have just become part of the whiteness of America.
I don't think my generation is different at all, because I think anyone who is a second generation, which I had some friends who were second generation, a lot of them wanted to assimilate too.
Yeah.
Because your kids, your teenagers, your friends are
You want to
all
wear
doing
the
this.
clothes your friends are wearing.
Yes,
You want to eat
the food.
It always is embarrassing to have something different in your lunchbox.
Yeah. So
Not
I
as
do
much
think it's
like this new generation is actually excited and more open to it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And this is why, so then the second great movement of assimilation or white culture, and this is where we would definitely see this Protestant language, was after World War II.
Okay.
And after World War II, because of America's dominance, we weren't desecrated from the war. What we did, we assumed was the right way, because we had this power and we had this dominance over so many countries and worldwide, Japan, so forth, that there was this inherent assumption that white Protestants were doing it right.
Yeah.
So, which was definitely a self-fulfilled prophecy in a weird kind of way. But it again, when people came over to the United States and came in here, there was this desire to assimilate to what were the normative values.
Yeah.
Because we assimilated. Okay, so anyways, I'm just, but those are two things. And even it's funny how you were just saying earlier, was a real cause to this kind of way of assimilation. And there were really dominant spaces in America that kind of forced that assimilation.
I believe that.
Yeah. So, okay. So if I were to ask you, what is your culture? What is your ethnic culture, or what is your race is tough because race is a social construct, right? And
explain that more for our listeners, for people.
So what I mean by, if we lived in a place that was predominantly brown skin, for example, we would still have differences, and there would be many differences. And so in America, especially in the 1800s, a big time for that, earlier so, in order to distinguish who were kind of better or highbrow, we looked and said it's easier to say white people, black people. And so in order for you to build up into that more esteemed community, you would do whatever you could to assimilate to the white norms.
Yeah.
And so it's a construct. It's not a real thing.
Maybe explaining in the sense that construct, to your point, a construct means it's made up by
institutions.
And at one point in time, like I was saying, Italian was looked at as a race versus an ethnicity.
Exactly.
Italian, and so they had Italian and Irish were definitely discriminated against versus the English Protestants.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so those were all broken down into races. And so we create races based on almost the way that other countries
might use dialect or something
might use
like
class systems or things like that.
Yeah.
We have built a race system.
Yeah. So what's your culture, Jonelle?
So I love you, but you've asked me this before.
Yeah.
We've
Okay.
had this
Yeah.
we've had this.
But the thing is, I want to talk about it because it's clearly coming out in social
Okay,
circles.
then I want to hear from your perspective.
Okay.
Because
Well, I've been thinking a lot about my culture, and I feel really blessed because I did grow up with my German grandparents, and I did grow up with German aunt and uncles, and so there was definitely things. I think I understood my German culture more because my mom was predominantly her first father was English and her mother was German. And so she always attributed herself more English. And I don't know if there was personal conflict in the family, but she liked to say she's more proper, that she
then why did you know your German side more? That doesn't
because
make sense.
my other grandparents were all German.
Okay.
And so, which were, we made more German food. We made more German, there was a lot of sausage, and there was a lot of schnitzel, and there was a lot of Danish, and we spoke German in the family, and we went to a German Lutheran school. And so I know more about that, and so I'm curious, like,
but
with
I
you.
think this is where a lot of maybe generations, and this is what I was trying to explain before, with grandparents knowing is a lot of my generation is very disconnected. I didn't have the German grandparents doing the German things, and so like I remember a time we were in Spain and you ran into a man who was German and you go, I'm German.
Yeah.
And I was mortified because there was clearly when you're in Europe, Germans think of people born and living in Germany as German.
Yeah.
And so I do think there is this disconnect with Americans because we've lost a lot of that traditional heritage. Not everyone, but a good majority of white people, white Americans have lost that traditional heritage. And so
one of the things they were talking about too is embracing our geographical roots as well in America.
Well,
and
you didn't let me finish.
Oh, sorry. I thought that you took a space.
No,
yeah.
You didn't let me finish. And so what I was saying is I think some of this could be helped by researching your roots more.
Yes.
So that is one, taking that. But then two, I was going to say the geographical, because there's such a distinct difference. Like I definitely consider myself more Northwest than I would the South, even though I lived in the South for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, you probably still consider yourself a little bit more Midwestern because that's where you grew up. And so there are distinct areas. But again, it's hard to say that because I still feel like that's such a white privilege to say because it's the dominance of that space.
But part of culture, I brought this up to a friend, and she said, and she's from Chicago, she's from the Midwest, and she's my age, and she said, oh my gosh, it is marshmallow jello salads at picnics, and it is it's peach slices that are from the can. And I thought, oh my gosh, I totally know what she's talking about. So I think the thing that I'm trying to get at, and so this is part of what I'm trying to get at, is this. When you travel, for example, you see totally how different people engage in their environment because of what the normative process is. I think thinking about what we do and what our culture is, what my inherited culture is, positively and negatively, because there's good and bad. Clearly, there's, especially when I think of myself as a dominant culture, some of it can be bad. But I think why it's important is because when we appropriate another culture, like, for example, if I had a mariachi band at my birthday, that is definitely a Mexican culture or a culture that we've seen. I can give credit to that different culture.
I think it's how you approach it. I think
But I think if you don't know, instead of wanting to borrow it and take it and own it, you can then give credit to who were the persons that were originating that, those cultural spaces.
There's this woman on TikTok, this is a while ago, who got cornrows done in her hair, and the white woman. And, a lot of people are giving her a hard time for it. And she posted all this information about how the Vikings were the first ones to do braids. And, Viking is white culture. And the discourse around it is, though, what she is missing in all of this is even though Vikings had braids, they were different braids than what she was representing.
Yeah.
And so instead of just giving in to everyone saying, like, that's not appropriate, like, what you're doing is, she really, like, tried to hold on to a piece that might be slightly white.
Or could she have simply said, I am doing this, and I'm doing this because no. So this is
cornrows are not Viking.
Yeah. No, I understand that. No, I totally understand that difference. But could she have given credit to people where the histories of cornrows really were from, rather than trying to defend herself in a way that's not even accurate?
I mean, yes, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
What she should have done is never done it to begin with.
The bare minimum.
Because I think.
Well, I think.
No.
Okay, but the thing is, though.
No,
wait, hang on. Hear me out. Are we not supposed to eat Mexican food?
No. Oh my God. No, these are two very different things.
So, but I think.
No.
Okay.
No, appropriation with Mexican food is not appropriation.
Yeah.
That is not appropriation. There are certain things, because we have a white dominant culture, that don't need to be for white people.
Yeah.
What cornrows represent to a Black community does not need to be taken over by us. Even if it's a celebratory term, even if we think we're doing it to honor it, there are some things that are just not meant for us.
Yeah.
And we need to be okay with it. And I think this is the problem with white culture in general, is since we are a dominant culture, we then feel like everything is for
that
us.
Is really the bigger problem. I agree with that.
And not everything is for us. And I think even maybe a better example, here's something that maybe you would understand, is like, for example, they're now with the plus size movement more gaining like body positivity, and there's more plus size options in like regular size stores. A lot of people then have been backlash. Now, for years, plus size only stores have had the ugliest clothes in the world. Like, they've been awful. They're ugly. Finally, now there was a thing about, like, I can't even remember what store it was, but a plus size only brand had a really cute top, and all of these straight size small white girls were complaining that why did this store only cater to plus size women? And so that's what I'm talking about here.
Got it.
Is like, they only cater to plus size women because so much
no one else does.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the same sense.
I guess I was thinking about this.
It's not everything needs to be for everyone,
everybody.
Especially when white people pretty much get everything.
Well, and this is one of the things that I was wanting to talk about in this thing is, if we know our culture, if we know the spaces in which we have shared values with other people, not shared values, wrong word probably, but if we know our culture, then when we're in systems or in places, instead of taking it, we're giving attribution to the right spaces.
I don't know if I still agree with this. Like, again, we almost had this literally exact same conversation about a year ago.
Okay.
Is this when you do your student project?
No.
Because I feel like
I got really
interested
interested in this because on TikTok, a lot of people are saying, learn your culture, get to know your own culture, and stop stealing ours.
Agreed with that one. And I'm not saying this to like against you. I just was more curious because like even some of the questions you asked were the same. And like,
why do white people?
Let me finish.
Okay.
And even last year when we talked about this, I still had the same thoughts that I'm also struggling today to try to like compose.
Yeah.
But I still don't know if that is the right approach for us. Like, white people find your culture. Because I think it's more about white people be aware of other cultures. Like, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, but I think
no, because I feel like we have these habits then when we find our culture. This is going back to like the German thing. This is going back.
Yeah.
We are not German anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm not German.
No, I know. But my point is, so if you're starting to ask white people find your culture, we are not German anymore. We are not traditionally doing those German things. So when you ask white people find their culture, they might then find German stuff and then start appropriating
and stereotyping
and doing German things. The same thing goes for Northwest. Northwest culture actually is much more about the indigenous and the land and all of these great, like the nature around us. That it should not be my culture. And I'm not saying you're wrong in this. I'm just saying again,
well, because
when it comes to educating white people,
one of the fears and one of the reasons that they think that we keep taking from other cultures is because we're starved.
But this is
and they actually say here's another statistic.
But this is my point.
So
this is totally my point. Can I finish on? This is exactly my point, though. But we're looking at the solution in the same way that we're helping other people celebrate their cultures. But instead, white people, we already get celebrated all the time. I instead think of, again, placating to us and being like, oh, you poor guys, you don't have a culture. I instead think the education isn't educating us on to find our own personalized culture, but again, is to do the education on our culture is the dominant society.
But
this is our culture.
So actually, I'm not disagreeing with you. However, one of their things that they were saying, or one of the statistics I have or research here is saying that we actually are happier people, and maybe the word culture is a word that gets confused with ethnicity, and maybe this is different because my students have now owned it like I'm part of an exercise culture. I'm part of a arts culture. I'm part of no, I did when I talked about the sports game when I was talking about soccer. These shared values. And so then I have anyways, I'm just saying
but
that
I still think
they say
shared values.
So in other words,
culture, though.
if I'm hearing, and I'm just responding to what I've heard, and I've seen it several times now on Instagram,
I
too. Get your own culture. Stop stealing ours.
But then this is where your connections don't make sense. Soccer is not the same equivalent as Black culture.
No.
So that's what I'm saying. So we're still this is my point.
Yeah.
We're still placating our white kids and all of us, our whiteness, by saying, find your culture. It's your values. It's your soccer. That's not culture. So I don't think that's going to fill the niche of what culture really is. I think that's finding your values, that's a very different thing than finding your culture.
Yeah.
And so then by them saying my culture is soccer, that is not the same as someone coming in and being like, my culture is, Caribbean food. My culture is about, music and drums and this and that. That's a very different, those are different things again. And again, I think what we're doing a disservice to white people over and over again by trying to
I don't know. I will be very excited to hear from our listeners because I don't know if I agree with you. This is where we're going to agree to disagree. I think what I'm hearing is just what I'm hearing and what I'm thinking is when we don't have identifiable markers, which many of us don't as white people because we're dominant, we've never had to think about it. But yet everybody does. Everyone has family traditions, family lore, family stories, things that mark their way of think about one way culture.
That's a slippery slope then.
Well,
to me, that's very different than culture.
Well,
your family traditions, that is different than the
tradition is part of culture.
Part of culture.
Yeah.
But what you're asking, culture is a large identifier of a lot of people. That is very different than family systems.
Actually, I don't think it is a large identifier. When you're in, well, maybe this is what we need to do is look at the culture.
Look up
it's
culture.
Anyone that shares value systems. Yeah,
is that what it is?
Values, traditions, music, foods.
See, here's the deal: music, foods. Like that's not. We all play soccer.
Well, I think
we're a runner.
One place that has probably a lot of culture that you might say is Texans. They have, like, if we're going to stereotype, they have a culture in the way that they like certain musics. And so if you differ from that culture.
But their culture is appropriation. All of the stuff that you're talking about, the STEM culture is appropriation. So this goes back to my point of when we're trying to identify to our white.
So if you heard this question, then the way I heard this question.
Well, this is why I think I've never
how would you answer it?
This is my point. I think I had the exact same response last year when you asked, and I asked you to answer it first because I didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
Because again, I still struggle with this focus and conversation that I don't think this should be.
But the focus and conversation is white people get a culture.
I think what they're more asking is white people get out of our culture.
Yeah. Well, Toni Morrison made the claim. She said this in Charlie Rose interview. She asked the question of white people, if I take race away from you, what do you have?
Yeah.
If I take your race away and there you are, all strung out, and all you got is your little self, what are you without racism? Are you any good? Are you still strong? Are you still smart? Do you still like yourself? I mean, these are the questions. And if you can only be tall because someone else is on their knees, then you have a serious problem. But
that's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
But again, this goes back to my point then. By identifying that soccer is their culture, soccer can go amongst many cultures. That is not their white identifiable culture.
This is why the word culture gets confused.
Well, that's what I'm asking, but I feel like it should be a different, I think value system, like, or group, and a group you identify with. I think all of that makes sense, but I think topic you're asking of white people to find their culture.
No, there's no way one culture is going to fit every person. What I'm asking.
But this is what Black people are saying.
Yeah.
Black people, there is an inherent.
No, that's being.
No, I'm not.
There's a lot of differences.
Okay. There are a lot of differences, but if you talk to a lot of Black people, there are core identifiers that they feel are their culture.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yes. And we have core identifiers that are part of our culture.
But that's what then you should focus on.
Well, and then
is not
I see. Not going back to the roots. Well, what happened was, and it's exactly what I said, is in this Americanization, we got stripped of our individual ethnic cultures because we tried to assimilate to what we thought was the American way.
Yeah, but this is my point. We are now so far removed from those individual cultures.
Well, yeah.
We are now a white dominant society. But because we are a white dominant society, we don't see.
This is a conversation I think we need to tether out farther.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But
now I'll be interested in you reflecting, because either clearly I'm not communicating, which may be very true.
No, I think you're communicating.
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say is, I think the first step before white people can even identify their culture is to identify that we are the dominant culture. This is why they don't think they have a culture. It's because we've dominated all of this culture.
Well, no, you're right.
So that's what I'm saying. So then by placating and helping them see that, soccer or running club is
I see
culture,
what you're saying.
that is not helping the greater story of what you're saying these people are asking for, of white people get your culture.
Yeah.
Because then all it does is it makes white people take over running.
Yeah.
It makes white people exclude other people. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And define it as their culture.
So one of the things that they were saying why we have a hard time with identifying a our culture
Yeah.
is because we have been so indoctrinated for individualism.
Yes.
Rather than
exactly.
community.
And so this is
Yeah.
my point is
Yeah.
it's continuing on there. We
So
want our
maybe
own-
this is why I moved back to the language of the family, because maybe that's the largest community some of us have within the white culture.
And it might be.
Yeah.
And it might be. But
Yeah.
to me, though, still a family structure. It's the way the
Yeah.
conversation was set up is I think sometimes white people need to do the work, is my point.
Yeah.
And sometimes
But
they don't get.
I think we need to do the work also. I guess maybe because I know
we are
need
the
to
white
wrap up.
people. So
We are,
we need
but
to do the work.
we do need to do the work about our own histories and where we like what got erased
Yeah.
when we became white, so to speak. What got erased when we said yes to the assimilation of what it meant to be white in America?
I understand that. But again, I still don't think that's serving the point because it's just going to make us appropriate European cultures. Is my point. If we're disconnected, and then like so many people, you find out you're German, you find out you're Spanish, you find out you're Italian. And
but
then
isn't that what America is? It's a melting pot of so many different ethnic cultures.
Yeah, but this is where we're having the conversation of people are saying stop appropriating cultures.
But I think if you were Japanese and you wanted to share your culture, is that appropriating someone else's culture?
No, I'm just saying, but no, because they're Japanese.
Well, okay, this is where we're going to leave off. This is where we're going to leave off because we got to go. I'm hearing something from you that I don't know if I agree with. And what I'm hearing from you is, I'm hearing we don't want to appropriate other people's culture. And yet, I also feel like knowing our family's heritage, this is why genealogy is so important, and knowing how that heritage feeds into the way in which we might do life is part of our story.
Well, and that is 100% agree with that.
Then maybe you need to research culture.
No, it sounds like you also still need to research culture.
Okay, you guys are all saying what it would agree to disagree. Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us on White Women Wake Up. We hope today's conversation sparked something in you. It definitely sparked something in us. Whether it's reflection, a new question, or a deeper commitment to showing up with empathy and accountability. If you found this episode meaningful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, this month we're going for Share It with 3 new friends. You can also connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, or at whitewomenwakeup.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, be open, and let's keep waking up.
Before we go, give you a quick playback on where today's research came from. The history of whiteness as a constructed category comes from Princeton historian Nell Irvin Painter's book, The History of White People. The Americanization movement research comes from cultural strategist Whitney Dunlap-Fowler's 2025 essay, The Great Return in the Age of Awareness. The De Prima quote on trading culture for whiteness was reported by Good Faith Media in February 2026. The TikTok strike data comes from Newsweek 2021, reporting on Black creator equity. And Toni Morrison's challenge, Who Are You Without Race? That comes from the 1993 interview on Charlie Rose Show. All the links in the show notes. Keep waking up. Bye.